Now, fast forward, you have the birth of the Christian church, not in the Babylonian Empire, but in the Roman Empire. And 100 years passes after Jesus' ascension. He doesn't return. They're still preaching that he's coming back soon. But they then realize that, wait a minute, he's not here. We're living in this society, and it's influencing us in certain ways. What do we do? And Christians had to ask the very same questions of themselves that the Jews had to ask when they were in Babylonian captivity. Edward Gibbons, who is a famous historian, wrote an incredible 6-volume series called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. And he cited 5 reasons for Christianity's influence on the empire. Number 1, it was the uncompromising zeal and Christian conviction. Without the unsocial spirit that the Jews had, because they believed that the Gentiles were unclean and had to separate themselves, and that was the law of Moses. But the Christians, on the other hand, sought to engage the surrounding culture, interact with them, do business with them. But there was a deep conviction in their hearts. Secondly, Gibbons cited that the Christians had a doctrine of a present and future life with total improvement on the human condition. It was not just about the life and the world to come. It was also about improving the human condition, the life that we are living now. Thirdly, Christians had this miraculous sense of healing, and they engaged in healing services and healing rituals that actually worked. And these powers would actually move out and heal sick and infirm people who lived in the empire. Fourth, Gibbons cited the pure and austere morals of these Christians in a world of Roman corruption and immorality. The unity, fifth, number 5, the unity and discipline of the Christian community itself was a testimony to something special and influential about this Christian community. And it gradually formed an increasing and independent influence on the heart of the Roman Empire. The Christian community would actually take up children who would be abandoned on the streets of Rome, bring them into the church community, feed them, care for them, nurture them, take care of them. The Christian church would, in the Roman Empire, take the older people who were discarded in the streets and bring the elderly into the Christian community, widows who were discarded in the streets and bring them in. The Christians would establish hospitals and other agencies. So in churches doing this, things like healthcare and social services, soup kitchens and money for the poor if they needed, they would take up collections in the church just to give money to the poor. The establishment of the institution of widows, because a widow in Roman society who had lost their husband didn't have money for her own. And she was at the very bottom of the social ladder. So one of the first welfare institutions is founded by the Christian church, and it was for specifically widows. This was special, dealing with issues of poverty. So the Christians found themselves socially engaged, even though they were talking still about the imminent return of Jesus. Well, those activities so influenced and shaped the empire of Rome that by the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine saw that the only thing that would rescue the empire, because it was in decay, interior decay, moral decay, political decay, corruption. It was taking over and was hurting the empire. This Christian social ethic and this Christianity would be good for the empire. So Constantine decided the only thing he could do to rescue the empire was to take over the institutions that the Christians had already built up, including, by that time, institutions of education, reading and writing, because, to be a Christian, you have to learn to read the scriptures. Read, at those times, the letters that were being circulated. Christians wanted to have their members knowledgeable and capable of reading the Bible. In the administration of the last pagan emperors before Constantine, at the very end of the 3rd century, a large number of people in the imperial administration were Christians. So you had Christians in political office. Wealthy business people were also Christians, and they could read and write. And this constituted a big problem in the persecution of Christians, because they were thrown out of administrative offices at some points in time, and suddenly the government became dysfunctional because they were getting rid of the Christians. Well, once Constantine made Christianity legal and then declared it the religion of the state, there was heightened demand for a formal Christian social ethic, not only on the life and dignity of the human person, but on issues of just war and unjust laws. And all these things came out of the demand for Christians to assimilate into the society without losing their identity. Of course, this forced questions of a Christian social ethic and Christian social responsibility. Questions like, should we try as Christians to influence public policy? If so, to what extent? Questions like, should we play a political role in society? Questions like, should we seek to influence or impose our Christian values on society? Should we consider the rights of those who are not Christian? Are there common interests for the religious and the secular communities? Is there common ground that we as Christians can work together with others who may not believe what we believe or agree with our value system? Their common good. We have to engage in social reform while we preach the gospel, while we present the return of Jesus and this wonderful millennial age that's going to come in. We still have a responsibility, what the Jewish people call tikkun olam, repairing the world. They understood that we're not here just for our own moral good, but for the good of society as a whole. Edwards completed his 7 propositions by saying, creation culminates in God making all things new. So the Christian relationship with the world is, number one, embrace the good knowledge, the good philosophies, good values, good ideas, best practices, absorbing them into a Christian way of living and thinking in the world. Secondly, reject the bad knowledge, the bad philosophies, the bad values, the bad ideas, the worst practices. Reject those. Thirdly, change what we can. Transform that good knowledge, those good values, those good ideas and best practices into something better, more powerful, more productive. Improve on what's here. That's what we do as Christians. We make life better. Build partnerships. networks, collaborations with others. Jesus said, make friends of the mammon of unrighteousness. Doesn't mean you become what they are, but you make friends, you collaborate, you network, you build partnership. Network resources, collectively address social needs and social issues. This is what we do as Christians. On integrating into the society, there's no conflict for us between faith and reason, because we believe that philosophy deepens belief in God. History sensitizes us to the providence of God. Science inspires the awe of God. And literature expands the spirit. Art stimulates feelings of inspiration and change. So we look at ourselves in society according to the kingdom of God, his way of thinking and being and doing, as transformers of culture, getting involved in social issues to the degree that it doesn't compromise our values and our convictions. And let me just insert this, because when I got saved in the Pentecostal church, and Jesus was coming in 2 weeks. Well, it's 45 years later. And I learned along the way that regardless of when he comes, we have a responsibility to live the Christian difference, to live out our faith. And that faith calls us to have a voice within the society. The church must be seen not just as a religious institution, but as a social, cultural institution. And I believe that God has given the church a voice in the earth, what Jesus called the salt of the earth. Going back to the beautiful parable about the sower and sowing good seed in the field, which is the earth, the world, but then an enemy coming and sowing bad seed. So we have the wheat and the tare, commonly known in the King James language. And when the master comes and they say to him, didn't you sow good seed? Where did the bad seed come from? Where did the tare come from? He said, while men slept, an enemy came and sowed tare among the wheat. Then they asked, well, do you want us to remove the tare from the wheat? The master said, no. Let them stay there, because if you try to remove the tare from the wheat, you may uproot the wheat at the same time. Essentially, we could get so many interpretations out of this. He said, no, let them both grow together. What he was saying is that right now, the world in which we live, we have good and evil combined, and we have to navigate through both. That this is what we have. Where we are is that Christianity is now on the cutting edge for social change, which it should have been all along. The kingdom of God is a way of thinking, a way of doing, a way of being, demonstrating God's love and his power, his life and his light. Jesus addressed it so beautifully in Matthew 23. He said, look, you're so caught up in the ritual of religion that you've neglected the weightier things of the law, like justice and mercy. Let our voice be loud, but let it be with wisdom, pragmatism, understanding, patience, honor, respect for order. But let us engage the kingdom of God in the earth to demonstrate those four voices that God has blessed us to demonstrate in the world. Thank you. I hope this has blessed you in some way. I'm A.R. Bernard. God bless.